My boy, congratulations, man. George Janko is going around and interviewing different people who have influence, and he's gotten to the point where now he's interviewed Andrew Tate. I could have never imagined George interviewing Andrew Tate on a podcast. Now, as far as the interview, I have to say that there was a lot of great moments in this interview. Like, for instance, when George just kind of neutralized Andrew Tate's confidence about the Bible.
I'm going to bring it back to the Bible.
Yep.
In the beginning was the what?
In the beginning was light, wasn't it? In the beginning was the stars, and I should know this.
In the beginning was the Word.
The Word, you're right.
I like how Andrew Tate is like, the word, right? As in like... No, hang on. And there was an even better one too, where like he was just so unbelievably confident.
If there's two wolves, and I'll say this every time, I've said this a few times, there's two wolves, Andrew. One's chained up in the dark, one's chained up in the light. Which one lives?
Yeah, absolutely. The one in the light.
The one you feed.
Interesting.
Didn't I tell you guys? But the reason why I want to talk about Andrew Tate is because, believe it or not, man, there's a lot of concessions he was making and a lot of things that I was like, hey man, that's pretty respectable. So we're going to take a look at a couple of those things, and of course there's going to be a couple of things that I disagree with that I'm going to bring up. So I'm looking forward to this. Let's get started.
Why did you get banned?
I got banned because you get 3 lives, and the 3 lives are, first you get canceled and banned absolutely everywhere, and the second life is they try and put you in jail for something you didn't do, and then the third life is they assassinate you. And I'm now on my second life, as most people have experienced in real time.
Andrew, you know damn well that those aren't the reasons why you got banned. You got banned because you weren't careful with your words, especially your analogies. I can show you guys an example of what I mean by Andrew not being careful with his words.
Like if I haven't eaten, I'm not good.
Yeah, so women are effectively children. And
Well, no.
Yeah,
we're
see,
not.
no, so
we're
we
just
got
different.
there. No.
We're just different to men. We're not children. A child couldn't sit here and have this conversation with you.
Women have to be monitored and maintained and maintenanced effectively like a child would when it comes to
Not
travel.
like a child.
Yeah, same, exactly the same. It's the same.
It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's Leia Heilpern, or Heilpern. She is a huge Andrew Tate supporter, and even she was going against Andrew's words when Andrew was stating that women are effectively children. Like, my dude, and the thing is that he doubles down. Here's the thing, he ends up doing it again in his interview to a much smaller degree. Check it out.
Men are more stoic and more patient. If you had a household where the man's been feminized and the woman's in charge, it's over for that house. They're full COVID cucks head to toe. 10 vaccines. They are. If you had my household, where my girlfriend ran in, did you see the news? Shh. Shut up. It's stupid.
In this exchange, you can see that Andrew Tate is just being, like, in his analogy, of course, he's kind of being dismissive of his woman, right? He's kind of doing like, yeah, okay, you're dismissed, right? George asks him, or actually calls him out on that behavior and says, wait, why do you do that? I do also want to go ahead and say that this segment is going to be cut up because in between those cuts, there was a lot of just reiteration of George and Andrew just saying the same thing over and over again, and I just kind of wanted to get it to the point, so it's a little cut up just to let you know.
Everything you just said, I agreed with. Everything you just said, I agreed with. The only problem that I see is when you were like, shut up. Now, my girl's gonna be like, well, why did he just tell his girl to shut the fuck up? Like,
I said shush.
Yes, but okay, let me give you an
But I
example.
was dismissive with my hand.
Nah, I know, but you know what this means?
Flicking the diamonds.
Get the fuck out of my face. This is what every girl here, shut up and go make me a sandwich. So here's the thing. When you see a fireman bust into a building that's on fire,
Yep.
He's not going to look at the person and be like, what the fuck? Why did you do this? Da, 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 da. He's going to be like, hey, it's okay. Look at me, grab my hand, come out.
Yep.
Why can't you take that approach?
I think I am. And it's actually funny when you say I lose to women, because I'll tell you something that most people probably do not know. I don't know if I've said it before. I have never had a negative interaction with a female ever since I blew up on the internet.
All right, so I end up cutting it there because Andrew doesn't end up answering the question. Instead, he just kind of talks about how he's never had a negative interaction with a woman, which, again, that's fine, you know, but it's not about women. Andrew is making it about how he interacts with women when we're talking about the online media. In the online media, there's a certain way you have to conduct yourself. Otherwise, people are going to come after you. And so George is just simply asking, why can't you just be more rhetorically effective? Why don't you want to just captivate more of an audience rather than just isolate a group of people, which in this case is women, when you have a sense of humor like that? But if I was to take a guess as to how Andrew would answer this this question, I feel like he probably would say that he wouldn't change. His insult humor is what makes Andrew. Andrew loves to insult people.
People on here talking about my producing's bad. You ain't never thrown your debit card at a bitch and bought $17,000 coat because you were drunk and bored. Ever. So many women say to me, you're so, Andrew, you know what? You're so rich, but you're smart and you're actually very intelligent. And I know you'd get really bored of a robot. And I'm sitting there thinking, bitch, I wish to God you were a robot.
I mean, there's even a viral video of a kid reacting to Andrew Tate to see how long he can watch Andrew Tate without being insulted.
Welcome back to the channel. So today I'll be watching Andrew Tate until he insults me or I get bullied. So here we go.
You're wrong!
Okay.
Obviously, the video only lasts for 8 seconds. Although it's just a meme, the joke behind it is that Andrew Tate insults people. And there's one more thing I want to go ahead and show you guys that I thought was very fascinating to me, because again, he ends up making concessions, and even though he's jumping from point to point, I still think that this is pretty interesting.
As a honest individual, I have to sit here and be honest and analyze myself and analyze my own romantic relationships. Am I completely faithful in the traditional sense? No. Why is that? It's a good question. I can't say exactly why that is, but I think that probably the biggest decline in the Western world I have to accept, even though I partake in it and even though I am guilty of it. I think the biggest failing of the Western world is that men and women do not stick together anymore.
In this segment here, he talks about how he's also taking part in the failing of the Western world, which I thought was very interesting. I wish that George would have asked him a couple more questions, like, how do you view yourself? What role do you think you're partaking in the failing of the Western world? Because I never thought that Andrew ever viewed himself like that. I always thought that Andrew viewed himself as somebody who's attempting to solve the problem that he believes exists in the Western world. I mean, he's always talking about how the Western world is godless and there's no God there's no God-fearing man, and so he believes that it's impure. So that's why I'm saying, like, how do you feel like you're partaking in that? And for his last point, talking about how men and women don't stick together anymore, I mean, my dude, as simple as it is, you just have to look at the rhetoric. When you're saying stuff like, you know, women are like children, like, I mean, how are you expecting them to stick around, you know? As far as the interview, I have to say that I really enjoyed the interview. George, he was an incredible interviewer, and I really appreciate how George ended up meeting Andrew at his avenue. Let's pay attention to how George uses words like chess or master, or even how he incorporates Andrew Tate's verbiage of how he speaks about women and how he speaks about men, how he combines it with his own question. Let me go ahead and give you guys an example of what I mean.
Now, I agree. This dismissive, the diamonds, you know, in the light, I get it.
Yeah.
Is it purposeful? I don't want to say it's purposeful. Do I find myself amusing? Certainly.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's funny.
But here's the thing: we could take a joke and we could filter the.
Yeah.
But females, like you said, they're based off of emotions.
Correct.
They're gonna feel their emotions first and then react. Men are like, oh, that's hilarious. Obviously, he's not gonna tell his girl to do that.
Yeah.
Most likely, the real scenario is like, sweetheart, come sit down. Everything's fine. Listen to me. I'm gonna protect you.
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious to know, why don't you just take that approach? Because I know you know what you're doing. You're a chess master. Every move you make, you're making it for a reason. Are you doing it to be polarizing?
Did you see how giddy Andrew was in that segment? Like, he was happy that George was just acknowledging his strengths, and I think that makes for a very effective debate if you can do that. Because yeah, this interview was in a way a debate, and it was great to see them just leveling down with each other and just understanding each other, you know. And I think that the best way to understand another person, especially a controversial figure like Andrew, is to welcome him into an environment where it's not as hostile as they may perceive it. Obviously, a good example of this is with the BBC interview. The BBC interview was just very hostile, and it wasn't productive. It did create a lot of memes, but unproductive, if you ask me. So I really have to give like at least an A minus to this interview. It was a great interview. I really enjoyed it, and I really can't wait for part 2. Part 2 is going to come out. I'm going to be talking about it more because it's a little more complex, especially because Andrew ended up bringing up Neon, Sneeko, Aiden, and there's a lot going on with them that I really want to explore. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, hopefully you guys learned something today.